What if the fairy tale romance that inspired millions was, in reality, filled with hidden nightmares? This story uncovers the private struggles of ABBA's most iconic couple, revealing truths that go far beyond the glittering stage lights. As Björn Ulvaeus finally opens up about his marriage to Agnetha Faltskog, the question arises, was their love as perfect as it once seemed, or was something darker quietly unfolding? Before we dive deeper, take a moment for yourself. Breathe slowly, let your shoulders relax, and prepare to step into a story where music, love, and heartbreak collide. The romance between Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog was once admired as the very symbol of youthful love and harmony. To fans around the world, they appeared to be the perfect match, embodying both passion and partnership on stage and in life. But behind the halo of this legendary couple lay secrets and struggles that few knew about. After decades of silence, Ulvaeus has finally spoken about the marriage nightmares he endured with Agnetha, forcing us to question whether their relationship was ever as sweet as it appeared. Despite being celebrated as one of the driving forces behind ABBA, the legendary Swedish pop group, Ulvaeus faced challenges that fame could not erase. One of his greatest personal battles was within his marriage to Agnetha Faltskog, the other half of ABBA's most famous love story. Their journey began in 1969, when Agnetha was only 18, just stepping into her solo career with youthful passion but little experience. Ulvaeus, on the other hand, was already building a name for himself with the Hootenanny Singers and was on the brink of joining what would become ABBA. Despite differences in age and career stage, their first meeting sparked an immediate bond. They shared dreams, music, and emotions with such ease that it felt inevitable. They were drawn together not just by love, but also by art. The two quickly became inseparable, both personally and musically. They collaborated on projects and supported each other's growth, deepening their relationship further. On July 6, 1971, in the small village of Varum, they sealed their love in marriage. The ceremony was intimate and filled with music. Benny Andersson himself played the organ, giving their vows an almost poetic backdrop. Their promise was clear: to support one another, to build a life where music and love intertwined seamlessly. In those early years, their personal life and ABBA's rising fame seemed beautifully aligned. Their first child, Linda, was born in 1973, followed by Peter in 1977. As young parents, they balanced family responsibilities with global fame, and on stage, their performances radiated chemistry. Songs like Waterloo, Dancing Queen, and Mamma Mia not only showcased their artistry, but also projected an image of harmony that fans wholeheartedly believed in. But reality was far more complicated. With every step ABBA took toward international superstardom, the couple's private struggles deepened. Their creative collaboration with Benny Andersson under Björn and Benny could not bridge the growing distance at home. Fame brought pressure, emotional gaps widened, and lifestyle differences created cracks that no amount of music could heal. By the late 1970s, the distance between Björn and Agnetha became undeniable. Though their relationship still carried mutual respect, the emotional strain grew unbearable. Their marriage, once a beacon of love, slowly unraveled. And in 1980, at the very height of ABBA's career, they divorced, leaving fans stunned and questioning how a love story so bright could collapse so completely. But were the reasons behind this breakup really so simple? To understand, we need to trace their journey back to its beginnings. When Agnetha joined ABBA in 1969, the group transitioned from three members, Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, and Annie Frid Lyngstad, to a complete quartet. Her addition was the missing piece, both musically and emotionally. Together, the two couples, Björn and Agnetha, Benny and Annie Frid, formed what would become one of the greatest pop phenomena in history. With Agnetha's powerful voice, Benny's compositions, and Björn's lyrical genius, ABBA rapidly soared to international fame. Their triumph at the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo was not just a victory for Sweden, it was the dawn of a new musical era. Soon, the band was touring the globe, performing to crowds that adored them, turning their songs into timeless anthems. Yet while the world celebrated their music, a darker reality loomed backstage. Behind the dazzling lights and infectious melodies, the pressures of fame and the fragility of personal relationships began to take their toll, most painfully on the marriage of Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog. The marriage of Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog was often painted as a beautiful blend of love and music, a union built on both affection and shared ambition. To the outside world, it seemed like the perfect partnership. Yet behind the curtain, reality was far more complicated than fans could imagine. The success of ABBA brought them worldwide fame and incredible joy. But along with the applause came challenges so heavy that only those inside their world could truly grasp them. The first cracks appeared soon after their victory at the Eurovision Song Contest. Following a month-long tour, Björn and Agnetha returned home eager to reunite with their little daughter, Linda. But to their heartbreak, the child failed to recognize them. Björn later confessed how painful that moment was, admitting that the lack of connection with their daughter cut deeply. It forced them to confront a difficult truth. Even though their love was genuine, the relentless demands of their career left little room for family. Their children, our children too young to understand fame, could only feel the absence of their parents. And fame, ironically the very thing that fueled ABBA's success, was also their greatest burden. While the group worked tirelessly to create music and deliver unforgettable performances, the weight of celebrity followed them everywhere. Agnetha, in particular, bore the brunt of it. Her natural shyness and desire for privacy clashed with the obsessive attention of overzealous fans. She admitted to experiencing terrifying nightmares, haunted by fears that strangers might strip away everything she held dear. The constant spotlight made her feel exposed, unsafe, and profoundly isolated, even while standing before adoring crowds. On stage, she always smiled, radiating the charm fans adored. But behind the scenes, the endless pressure of work and scrutiny strained her marriage to Björn. Both of them fought hard to hold their family together, yet the line between personal and professional life blurred until it was nearly impossible to keep balance. The harder they tried, the more frustration built up, like a weight pressing on their hearts. Agnetha, who was deeply private and rarely expressed her emotions, slowly grew distant. She retreated into silence, while Björn struggled to cope with challenges he could neither control nor fix. He felt as though their marriage, and even ABBA itself, was being suffocated by forces beyond their control. The fame that once seemed like a blessing became a shadow over their lives, intensifying not only their careers, but also their personal struggles. Still, despite the growing rift, they continued performing together, standing side by side on stage while carrying the heavy truth that their love was unraveling behind the scenes. Björn tried to be her anchor, but it was clear the burden was overwhelming for him as well. Slowly, quietly, their marriage began to collapse under the weight of expectations too great for any couple to bear. By the late 1970s, ABBA had reached the very peak of their stardom. Their music dominated international charts, their tours sold out stadiums, and their fame seemed untouchable. Yet behind the glittering curtain of success, the personal lives of the band members, especially the fragile marriage between Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog, were unraveling. To the public, they were still the golden couple of pop, smiling under the spotlight, but backstage the pressure was suffocating. Björn, who had always tried to stand strong as Agnetha's anchor through the storms of fame, found himself overwhelmed by the impossible task of holding together both a global music empire and his own crumbling family life. The demands of stardom, the endless travel, and the absence of real private time slowly wore away at their bond until the cracks could no longer be ignored. By early 1979, the illusion of harmony could no longer be sustained. The tension between them was no longer just a private matter. It began to cast a shadow over ABBA's inner circle. Though they continued to present a polished image to the world, behind closed doors, their marriage was breaking apart. The couple made the difficult decision to separate, and by 1980, after months of strained silence and emotional stalemate, their divorce became official. It was the end of a chapter, both painful and inevitable. What surprised many was the tone of their split. Unlike the bitter separation so common in the world of fame, Björn and Agnetha chose to part ways with dignity. They publicly described it as a happy divorce, a phrase that baffled fans who only saw the smiling photographs and television interviews. But those close to them knew the truth. The quiet sorrow, the loneliness, and the unspoken heartbreak were still very real. Their music soon became the vessel for those emotions. The rift in their personal lives seeped into their final songs, transforming them into something more than pop hits. They became confessions set to melody. The Winner Takes It All stood out as the most poignant, a song that functioned not only as ABBA's farewell to their audience, but also as Björn's personal farewell to the marriage he had lost. The process of writing that song was raw and deeply personal. Björn admitted he always kept a bottle of hard liquor by his side during the long nights of writing, not because he relied on alcohol to compose, but because it dulled the pain just enough for him to let his emotions pour out freely. In an interview with the London Times in March 2010, he confessed that writing under the influence was never his habit and not something he was proud of. But for this song, it was the only way to strip himself of defenses. By the time the lyrics were complete, the bottle was empty, as if the sorrow had been drained into the song itself. Perhaps the most difficult moment of all came when he handed the song to Agnetha. She, now his ex-wife and still his musical partner, had to give voice to the very words that revealed the wreckage of their love. Sensitive and intuitive as she was, Agnetha instantly felt the weight of the lyrics. When she sang the haunting line, "But tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" the emotions they had both tried to bury rose to the surface. The words cut deep, forcing her to confront not only the failure of their marriage, but also the painful intimacy of putting that grief on public display. Her performance turned the song into more than just a ballad. It became a mirror of their shattered relationship. For the audience, it was heartbreaking and unforgettable, and the song quickly became one of ABBA's biggest hits. But while the public admired the beauty of the music, the reality behind it was far darker. Beneath the harmonies, there remained two people bound together by art, yet divided by heartbreak, struggling to coexist even as their love story came to a permanent end. After the divorce of Björn Ulvaeus and Agnetha Faltskog in 1980, life for Björn entered a period of dramatic change. Though the separation had been an immensely difficult step, he refused to let it define his future. Instead, he chose to move forward, continuing his creative journey in music while quietly opening a new chapter in his personal life. In 1981, not long after the divorce, Björn found companionship in Lena Ulvaeus, a woman who worked within the music industry. Lena was described as strong, independent, and grounded, qualities that made her a steady presence at a time when Björn's world felt uncertain. Their connection quickly deepened, and in the same year, they married. For Björn, Lena was more than just a partner in love. She became a source of stability, offering comfort and encouragement as he worked through the turbulence left behind by his first marriage. Their family soon grew. In 1984, they welcomed a son, Christian, and 2 years later, a daughter, Emma. Determined to give his children the sense of stability he had once struggled to provide, Björn chose a quieter lifestyle. The Ulvaeus family was known for its privacy, avoiding the glare of media attention. Björn, once constantly in the spotlight, learned to shield his family from unnecessary exposure, valuing the peace of home above the noise of fame. Even as his personal life calmed, Björn never stepped away from music. Though ABBA officially disbanded in 1982, his creative bond with Benny Andersson remained unbroken. Together, they composed for new projects, including the 1984 musical Chess, which became a notable success in both London and New York. Beyond composition, Björn began exploring other ventures, from producing to business endeavors, further expanding his influence in the entertainment world. Yet despite the new sense of stability, the transition was far from simple. Balancing a flourishing career with family responsibilities brought its own challenges. On a personal level, the lingering emotional weight of his past with Agnetha never fully disappeared. Though he rarely revealed his inner struggles, those close to him knew he carried silent reflections of what had been lost. Still, his determination to protect and nurture his new family showed how much he longed for a life of peace after years of turmoil. But while Björn was slowly finding happiness in this new chapter, his ability to move forward brought unexpected pain for Agnetha, who, despite their separation, struggled deeply with the feeling that her former partner had left her behind far too easily. After her divorce from Björn Ulvaeus in 1980, Agnetha Faltskog entered one of the most painful chapters of her life. Though she remained a global icon as part of ABBA, the collapse of her marriage was more than just a personal loss. It shook the very foundation of her world. Björn was not only her husband, but also the father of her 2 children and her closest colleague on stage. Losing that bond meant losing both a partner in love and a partner in music, and the impact left scars that would take years to heal. Loneliness soon crept in. While ABBA continued to shine publicly, Agnetha felt increasingly detached, retreating from the limelight in an attempt to recover. She placed her music career on hold, dedicating herself to raising Linda and Peter, hoping to rebuild her sense of stability as a mother. But the shadow of ABBA was not so easily escaped. Fans and the media followed her every move, their endless curiosity and expectations adding pressure to an already fragile heart. Behind her quiet appearance, Agnetha was battling storms of grief and emptiness. She turned to psychotherapy, undergoing years of treatment to process the emotional aftermath of her divorce. In her 1997 autobiography, As I Am, she openly admitted how difficult it had been to let go of Björn and the life they had built together. For a long time, she felt adrift, unable to find herself outside the identity of being both his wife and an ABBA star. Despite her withdrawal from the stage, Agnetha poured her love into her children, who became her anchor during those uncertain years. Family life brought her small but vital moments of joy, even as she wrestled with feelings of loss and isolation. The world, however, did not leave her alone. She remained under the public's gaze, which often amplified her sense of vulnerability and added to the psychological struggles she tried to overcome. By the mid-1980s, after years of silence, she cautiously stepped back into music, releasing a solo album. The response was modest compared to ABBA's glory days, but for Agnetha, the return was less about chart success and more about rediscovering her voice. Music became a form of therapy, a way to express emotions that words could not. Slowly, she began to regain balance, though the carefree joy she once felt during ABBA's rise never fully returned. In time, Agnetha realized something profound. She needed to live for herself, not for ABBA, not for Björn, and not for the expectations of millions of fans. As the years passed, she learned to embrace the quiet, finding comfort in privacy and personal growth. While the shadows of the past never disappeared completely, she managed to carve out peace, especially during her musical comeback in the late 1990s, when new projects allowed her to reconnect with art on her own terms. Yet while Agnetha was learning to heal, Björn carried his pain differently. Outwardly, he seemed calm, moving forward with music and new commitments. But inside, he admitted the divorce consumed him too. Writing songs became his escape, his way of bleeding emotions onto the page. One of those songs, The Winner Takes It All, would capture the heartbreak of their separation more powerfully than words ever could. The impact of Björn and Agnetha's divorce rippled far beyond their own lives. It touched the very heart of ABBA. Benny Andersson and Annie Frid Lyngstad, who had already endured their own painful breakups, found themselves under mounting emotional strain as well. The tension behind the scenes grew heavier with each passing year, until in 1982, the band that had once symbolized unity and joy finally disbanded. It was the end of a dazzling decade of music, success, and worldwide admiration. Björn later reflected that ABBA had enjoyed an extraordinary creative era, but eventually the personal fractures proved too deep. Though the members still loved music and cared for one another, their complicated relationships made it impossible to continue as before. And yet, ABBA's story did not simply fade into the past. In 2021, after nearly 40 years, the group stunned the world with a groundbreaking reunion, though in a form no one had expected. Using cutting-edge technology, ABBA introduced fans to a virtual tour featuring digital avatars, offering audiences a chance to experience the band live once more, even if not in person. Alongside this, the documentary ABBA, Against the Odds was released, peeling back the layers of their journey. The film not only celebrated ABBA's musical triumphs, but also shed light on the personal struggles long hidden from the public, stories of love, heartbreak, betrayal, and resilience. One of the most poignant moments in the documentary came when Björn, now at 79, distilled decades of experience into a single lesson. It all starts with a song. For him, every melody was rooted in human experience, love, sorrow, hope, and longing. He explained that writing lyrics was never just about arranging words. It was about blending poetry with music to create images that linger in the listener's mind. It was this ability to channel raw emotion into art that made ABBA's songs timeless. Despite the heartbreaks, separations, and personal battles, music remained the thread that tied them together and connected them to millions around the world. Even though ABBA is no longer active in the same way, Their songs, Dancing Queen, Take a Chance on Me, The Winner Takes It All, and so many others continue to inspire, bringing joy, nostalgia, and comfort to fans both old and new. Though each member has long since carved out their own path, the legacy of ABBA lives on, etched in melodies that remind us of an era filled with brilliance, emotion, and unforgettable artistry. But now, I'd love to turn it over to you. What are your thoughts on Agnetha Faltskog's life after her divorce? Do you feel sympathy for the challenges she faced and the choices she made? Share your reflections below. I'd love to hear your perspective.